the 15th of January 2009, US Airways Flight 1549 was an Airbus A320 which 3 minutes after takeoff from LaGuardia's International Airport struck a flock of geese just northeast of George Washington Bridge and subsequently lost all of its engine power. Unable to reach any airport, the pilots glided the plane to a water landing on the Hudson River of Midtown Manhattan. This is the story of the accident that happened on that day. At 3:24 p.m., US Airways Flight 1549 took off from runway 4 at LaGuardia International Airport. It was meant to be a domestic flight from NYC to Seattle with a stopover at Douglas International Airport. There were 155 people on board, including 1 child and 5 crew members. It was piloted by 57-year-old Captain Chelsea Sullenberger, who had 19,663 flight hours, and more than 4,000 of them were on the A320. The first officer was Jeffrey B. Skiles, who had more than 15,000 flight hours and was on the last leg of his assignment on the Airbus A320. He just finished training on that aircraft. The aircraft was powered by 2 CFM56 turbofan engines, and the aircraft had previously logged more than 16,000 cycles, totaling to about more than 25,000 flight hours. The left engine had more than 19,000 flight hours and the right had more than 26,000. So both the APU and the RAT were operating as the plane descended onto the Hudson River. Although it was not clear whether the RAT had been deployed manually or automatically, the captain decided to deploy them anyway to get more power because of the loss of his both engines.
2 minutes after taking off from runway 4, reaching an altitude of 2,700 feet, the aircraft had hit a flock of Canadian geese, at which point it was 7.2 kilometers north-northwest of the nearest airport. Both engines immediately shut down and the captain took over the controls. And then the first officer, Skiles, began going through the emergency procedures checklist for an engine restart. The aircraft then slowed down and continued to climb until it reached an altitude of 3,000 feet. After that, it began descending and accelerated to an airspeed of 210 knots at an altitude of 1,600 feet. The captain radioed ATC stating the plane had hit birds and with lost thrust on both engines, turning back to LaGuardia.
Mayday! Mayday! Mayday!
Passengers and crew members later reported hearing loud bangs in both engines and seeing a flaming exhaust, then silence from both engines and smelling the odor of fuel vapor in the cabin. The air traffic controller then gave the captain a heading to return back to LaGuardia Airport on the approach end of runway 13, but the captain had replied he was unable to land given his current flight situation. The captain then asked if he could attempt an emergency landing in New Jersey, mentioning that Teterboro Airport was a possibility, which he could not. And then he said his famous one-liner, "We're gonna be in the Hudson."
We're gonna be in the Hudson!
When the plane was descending, the pilot failed to activate the ditching switch, which closes the outer ports and the outer valves of the aircraft so that water would not fill the aircraft upon landing. He later stated that it would not have been effective because the force of landing tore holes in the fuselage that forced water into the cabin. About 90 seconds before the touchdown, the captain then announced, "Brace for impact," before landing into the Hudson River just off Midtown Manhattan.
Brace for impact! Brace for impact! Brace for impact!
At the time of the bird strike, both the pilots came to a conclusion that the Hudson River was the safest and most suitable landing platform option based on the aircraft's then current airspeed, altitude and position. Immediately after the A320 had been ditched, the captain opened the cockpit door and started giving the evacuate order. The aircrew began evacuating the 150 passengers onto the wings of the aircraft and onto an inflatable raft that doubles as a life raft. The evacuees, some wearing life vests, waited for rescue on the partially submerged slides, knee-deep in water, while others stood on the wings. The air temperature at that time was about -7 degrees Celsius and the water was about 2 degrees Celsius.
Rescue operation was deployed by then. Boats from NY Waterways and Seattle cruisers responded quickly. 4 minutes after ditching, NY Waterway ferry Thomas Jefferson was the first one on the scene, followed by another one a few minutes later. Within minutes, boats from New York City Fire and Police Department were also helping out in the rescue effort. All 155 passengers and crew were rescued safely. 5 serious injuries and 1 was a deep laceration on one of the flight attendants' leg. 78 people in total were treated for mostly minor injuries and hypothermia.
The CFM56 engine was tested to meet bird strike requirement, so in theory it should be able to ingest 7 small birds or one large bird without causing complete engine shutdown. However, reports show that there were at least 2 large geese ingested into each engine. This proves that the engine would shut down completely because it's above the engine requirement. The right engine was still found attached to the wing when the aircraft ditched, unlike the left engine would detach immediately. The right engine nacelle was damaged through the entire length of the engine, but the spinner was left untouched. All of the blades were attached, but they were bent aft about half an inch, and 5 of those blades were significantly more damaged than the others. This shows that a large foreign object would be penetrated through the fan blade. The OGVs were present and intact. However, 3 LPC IGV were fractured and 2 are missing and 1 was still attached. The left engine that was completely detached from the wing had its nacelle heavily damaged. The exhaust duct was attached but significantly damaged as well. Extensive damage to the guide vanes and fan blades of the engine, and 5 compressor blades were fractured. Also, 8 variable guide vanes were missing. This shows that the extensive amount of damage that the Canadian geese had caused the engine.
Detailed examinations also revealed that the 2 separated low-pressure compressor inlet guide vanes were ingested into the engine core and caused nicks, tears, and fractures throughout the low-pressure compressor and the high-pressure compressor stages. Foreign object material consistently with bird feathers and tissue were found on the outer surface of the outer vane ring at the location of the fractured vanes. Furthermore, 5 stage 1 high compressor blades were found fractured, and the remaining blades were battered and bent out of shape.
The left engine combustor case was intact and appeared to be undamaged, and when disassembled, the examination showed that the combustor dome showed signs of crushing via a soft body impact, i.e. the Canadian geese. Visual examinations revealed that all of the fractured surfaces on both engines were consistent with overload, and no signs of pre-existing damage or fatigue type failures were found. Ultraviolet light inspection also shows that both engines were revealed foreign material consistent with bird feathers and tissues. They showed between the LPC and the spinner.
Black Beatles in the city, be back immediately to confiscate the monies. Ray Scrum, wow, my will. Sent flowers, but you said you didn't receive. But you said you didn't need. That girl is a real crowd, please. Small world, all her friends know of me. Young bull living like
So, what other improvements can be made to avoid such an accident from happening in the future? First of all, we could require manufacturers of turbine-powered engine aircrafts to develop a checklist and procedure for dual engine failure during low altitude. Developing and validating comprehensive guidelines for emergency and abnormal checklist design and development. The guidelines should consider the order of critical items in the checklist. For example, starting the auxiliary power unit, the use of opt-outs and gates to minimize the risk of flight crew members becoming stuck in an inappropriate checklist or a portion of the checklist, the length of the checklist, the level of detail in the checklist, the time also needed and required to complete the checklist, and the mental workload of the flight crew given the situation. Another alternative is to have a more thorough observation of Canadian geese migration patterns or their flight routes around the airport, such that departure times and flight altitudes can be tweaked in favor of their behavior to minimize any collision with a flock of birds and getting sucked into the engine, causing engine failure.
The Guild of Air Pilots and Air Navigators awarded the entire flight crew a Master's Medal on 22nd January 2009 for outstanding aviation achievements. The miraculous events that occurred on the Hudson River that day was later made into a movie, sadly followed by positive reviews.